Welcome to the Customer Wins podcast, where business leaders discuss their secrets and techniques for helping their customers succeed and in turn grow their business.
Hi, I'm Rich Walker, the host of the Customer Wins, where I talk to business leaders about how they help their customers win and how their focus on customer experience leads to growth. Some of my past guests have included Jason Barber of Uptick Partners, Adam Israel of Wolf Urban Management, and Shabana Nathu of Navigo Wealth Management. Today, I'm excited to talk with Bobby Steiner of Bobby Steiner Golf Academy. And today's episode is brought to you by Quick, the leader in enterprise forms processing. When your business relies upon processing forms, don't waste your team's valuable time manually reviewing the forms. Instead, get Quick. Using our Form Extract API, simply submit your completed forms and get back clean, context-rich data that is 99.9% accurate. Visit quickforms.com to get started. Okay, before I introduce today's guest, I have to give a huge thank you to Ken Schmitz of Salesfish for introducing me to Bobby. Go check out Ken's website at salesfish.com, as they specialize in driving results via B2B sales and marketing. Also, I want to dedicate this episode to two friends who are the best golfers I know, Phil Gascoigne, the trick shot master, and Tom Imbrogno, who helped my team win the longest putt and closest to the pin contest. And honestly, that's the extent of my golfing. All right. Bobby Steiner is a golf professional, fitness instructor, motivational speaker, and the author of 4 books. He serves as the director of golf instruction at Horseshoe Bay Resort near Austin, Texas. Bobby has 4 YouTube channels, which are Bobby Steiner Golf, Bobby Steiner Fitness, Bobby Steiner Karate, and Bobby Steiner Absolutes to Success. Bobby, welcome to the Customer Wins.
Oh, Rich, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. You know, when Ken Schmitz first told me about this opportunity, I said, I will jump at it because I saw some of your earlier work and some other podcasts that you produced, and it's great. So I'm glad to be here with you.
Oh, my pleasure. We're going to have fun today. So for those of you who haven't heard this podcast before, I talk with business leaders about what they're doing to help their customers win, how they built and deliver a great customer experience, and the challenges to growing their own company. I also love to bring other people's perspective who have completely different views and maybe non-traditional business sense. So Bobby, let's understand what you're doing a little better. How do you help people?
Well, so I've got a couple different channels, I suppose, through which I work with people and then I bring service to my customers. And one is I'm the director of instruction at Horseshoe Bay Resort. We have a golf academy, and my job as a golf professional, put simply, is to allow golfers of every level to derive more enjoyment from the game. And you know that if you say it real quickly, you think that's not too involved. Hey, golf is already enjoyable. What more can you do? Well, golf is intimidating, and it's a game that a lot of people simply don't continue to play because the introduction they got to the game wasn't something that inspired them to keep going. It was more nerve-wracking than anything else. You know, they were placed on this crowded golf course on a busy Saturday morning, and they couldn't even hit the golf ball. And I too wouldn't want to play if that were my first experience. So my job is to try to bring people in and make it less intimidating, make it something that they enjoy and can't get enough of. And golf is the same for me and for you and for anyone else. And that is, if you can go out and just play up to the standard that you found to be your own up to this point, or perhaps a little better, then you walk away satisfied. And so that's my job, is to help people play better, but also feel better about their chances in the game itself.
Man, I love that. So you said 2 really important things to me: derive more enjoyment from what they're doing. And when I think about this in business, when we offer products and services, that's essentially what we want. We want our customers to derive more value from the things they're trying to accomplish by using our capabilities, right? So
Absolutely.
I love that you're putting it that way. And the second thing I heard was living up to your standard and pushing that standard a little bit more. How does somebody even figure out what that standard is if they're new to the game?
Well, it's a great question. All of us want the same thing, and again, it's myself, you, Tiger, everybody. All we want is a game that's good for us, good relative to how we normally play. Nobody in the world enjoys limping off the golf course after having shot 10 to 15 shots higher than they typically do. And
Right.
so there's got to be some, in order for you to continue to come back. That's why golf is a little bit tougher as there's been a few more years go through your belt, because it's difficult to play to that standard. And that's why they have different sets of tees. And so that you just move up a little bit and continue to do as well as you can. And also, it's just like Michael Jordan when he came back after a little bit of retirement. He learned that falling back jump shot that he didn't rely on so much, and he continued to dominate with that. He had to change the way he did things a little bit once he realized that he let 3 years go without him playing any basketball. And now but he still wants to play. He's still competitive. He has to find another way. And so in golf, though we might hit the ball, might not hit it like we used to. As back when we were more supple around the waistline. As you get older, you say, okay, well, that's fine. I'm restricted to what I can do, but it doesn't require raw strength anymore to be good out of the sand or to be a good putter or chipper or pitcher. And so, and as that goes, I've got to sometimes change the way people measure their standard, or I should say, try to achieve their standard, because you can be done a whole lot of different ways.
Throughout my life, I've focused on personal development. And one of the things I realized is I need to live up to my own standard because nobody's going to do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what you're talking about here. I was fortunate I took lessons once for golf, but this is 20 years ago. And I was fortunate because I was surrounded by people who had a lot of strength and they could just muscle through the ball and hit it really, really far. And I was like, man, I want to be able to do that. And I got a coach who was my size, my wiry frame, and he could hit further than any of the muscle bound guys. And he showed me it's not about that strength. It's about the technique and the flow and where your mind is at. So how do you approach different people and help them adjust to what's natural or what's better for them and help them see it?
Well, what you say is very real. First of all, strength, and I'll get to your question, but I want to refer first to something else you said there. Strength does account for something in golf, something. It'd be foolish to say that it doesn't, because the person who gets the ball the hardest can hit it the farthest. But it's not the kind of strength you would use to bend a crowbar over your knee. It's the kind of strength you would use to crack a whip. And so it's a mixture of being able to move quickly with soft, relaxed muscles. And so relaxation and the ability to just put that thing in your hand and let it swing instead of trying to, hit it with every muscle in your body, using only the muscles required to do it, really is what determines who can hit the farthest. And so, but in trying to get into to answer your question more specifically, a person, just the patience and perseverance means the very most. Because day to day, if you're relying every single day being better than the next, then you are going to be doomed to disappointment, because that's just not the way that the game is. You've got to say, you know what, I'm going to look at myself not on the day by day scale, but am I better? Are these 10 rounds that I've played this past month, might I improve on them the 10 rounds I have a year from now? Will the average result continue to be better and not go down day by day? Because boy, if you judge yourself based only on the outcome of the next shot, then you can't play this game. And I'm going to tell you, the people I've found who I have the most belief in, that they'll stick it out and they'll play the games, are the ones who don't beat themselves up. And they need help with that. They've got to be reminded, hey man, that's okay. Expect 20 more of those bad shots like that. What counts most is that you can bounce back, and that those who really do celebrate the good shots, they don't lament the bad shots and they celebrate the good shots. And then I say, you know what? It doesn't matter whether you have any physical skill or not. You have the mental approach that's just right for the game. And so that's the big thing, encouraging people to stay on the positive. And that's not always easy, because some people, particularly those who have been successful in other sports, in other endeavors, and have picked up to them quickly. Golf's just not that kind of game. It's easy, for some if they start young, but it's certainly not easy to start as an adult and play at the same level that you did other sports.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what you see with teaching is about technique. It's about form. It's about the tactics, et cetera. But a lot of what cements the training is up here, and it's your approach, it's your attitude, it's your belief set. So I like the way you're going with this, and I want to ask a kind of a different question, because I was thinking about people who are hyper competitive. The guy who slams his racket on the ground because he hit the ball wrong in tennis, that kind of really hyper, versus people who are self-competitive versus non-competitive. What do you find is a successful attitude when you're approaching this game?
I found the person who can get the most out of their ability walks on the tee, and their mental approach is something like this. So they're playing against whomever. And maybe this whomever is a formidable opponent. They realize it. But that mental chatter that must go on goes something like this. So-and-so, you're a pretty good player. and I'd have to play pretty well to beat you. But I think if I stick in there, stay in there, and really try my hardest, I might just do that. That's the mental attitude that I see in the best players. Because you can't go beyond that. You can't say, "Well, I'm going to beat him no matter what," because there's a winner and a loser all the time. And the way the golf handicap system works is you're playing on pretty level ground most of the time, and so to it's beyond any reasonable expectation that you'll always win. So you've got to just keep it up and say, you know what, I've lost the first 3 holes here, but I bet if I hang in there, I bet if I just hang in there, something good can come my way. We're not done. It's easy to believe, and this is the what really holds a lot of people back, that every time I miss a short putt, the whole field just passed me by. Or when I hear a roar from a distant part of the golf course that, it was like a blow from a close pursuer. That wasn't it. That wasn't it. It could have been that some out of the running player happened to chip in while some other players waiting gallery happened to watch it. But your imagination runs right. And if you could just say, you know what, I'll stay within myself and control what I can control, and not be so worried about things going on around me. And we'll count the cards whenever these 18 holes are up and see just who did the best. I can't tell you the number of times when there's an expression used in golf saying he bagged it, meaning he quit, mentally quit. Maybe he didn't walk off the course, but he quit trying on number 13. Because it was windy and it blew in his face, or a ball blew out of bounds or something, and he's just had enough and he can't keep trying. And then that same person gets in and realizes, had I just played average on those final 6 holes, I would have won the whole darn thing. But instead, I gave up. And that is so common. And there was an old quote by Harry Vardon, who back around between 1898 and 1912 won about 6 British Opens, best player in the world, just before Bobby Jones. And he said, what's the best advice you have? Someone asked him. He said, just keep hitting your ball. Sometimes you never know, it could be good enough. Just keep hitting your ball. And I think that's probably good life advice.
I think it is. I've lived by a thought since I started in my career out of college that I'm not competing with my peers. I'm competing with myself. And I thought about, how would my bosses judge my work if, given my effort? And what I realized is, if I always give my best effort, if I try my best, how can they fault me for not being good enough? Yes. They can train me. They can tell me I'm in the wrong role, but they can't say I didn't try hard enough. And so I think about that, what you're saying. One of the friends I mentioned, Tom Imbrogno, I went golfing with him at his course out in Las Vegas. Super hot. I was destroyed by the heat after 9 holes, but in 9 holes, I lost 6 balls.
Out in the desert.
Out in the desert. And he was so gracious and so nice. He's like, here's another ball. Let's just keep going. And he was the one encouraging me. He's the one who gave me that. Let's just keep playing through. And then, of course, at the end, I'm like, oh, how many balls have you lost? He's like, I don't lose balls. I play with 1 ball for the whole year.
Yeah, well, there's a real lesson in there, and if you just keep going. Oftentimes, if you spend time lamenting, everything is kind of like life in general. When all of a sudden you've got this car that goes out on you, and some expense that you didn't anticipate, and all of a sudden you've got to spend $3,000 you didn't expect to have to spend. It's easy to get down and go, gosh, look at this. But if you average it out over the year, hey, you had just as many times where something came out of nowhere that you didn't see coming, that turned out to be fortuitous. And so my thing is to not give in too much to the highs, and just say, you know what, life is we want to maybe even out the flow of our chart a little bit. But generally speaking, there's no reason to spend too much time worrying about that, which has already happened and therefore can't be controlled.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. You can't change the facts. You can only change the attitude you have towards them.
Absolutely. That's so well said, particularly once, as you say, once they've happened, that's it.
Yeah.
Do the best you can.
So Bobby, let's switch gears a little bit, because in your role of helping people, they come to your resort, they get instruction, they work with you maybe one time, maybe they're there for just one weekend out of their entire life, or maybe you have people who are there every weekend working with you. What is the customer journey like? I mean, what experience are you delivering to them, and how are you helping ensure they actually get the most enjoyment from the game while they're experiencing their time at your resort with you?
Well, so golf is one of these things, and if you've ever been around an avid golfer, you already know this, and that is golfers' own game means more to them than anybody else's game means to them. Most people don't want they're so what the service that I provide is I am their teammate for the time that they're there. I'm that one person in the entire world who's not talking about his own game, but is rather focused on theirs. And that means so much to a person asking second and third and fourth level questions. And each question that's asked is not just part of a routine of 5 questions that I ask, but rather it's in response. It's a question that's developed based on the answer to the last question. So the path we take is customized based on what I'm hearing and what they're feeling. And let's go address what you told me. And people know whether they're being listened to or not. There's no denying it, and they don't care how many tournaments I've won. They don't. Means nothing to them. What they need to know, and what my mission is to accomplish, is that I am there to whatever work I've done on my game is back here. We are on your game today, and so that's what I tell my young instructors, guys. If nothing else, these people have got to leave that hour knowing that that person in front of them was all about them for that entire hour, because that is what they feel, and that is what they'll remember.
Man, there's so much that translates to everything we're doing in business. There's a book that I love. I think it's Donald Miller, the Story Brand, Building Your Story Brand. And he talks about using the hero's journey as a premise to build your brand. But one of the concepts is your product is not the hero. Your customer is the hero, and your product or service is the trusted guide. And that's what you just said. You are the trusted guide for this person. You are making your customer the hero for the hour that they work with you.
And they feel it, and they know the difference. They know, I'll never forget. I was giving, and it sounds like I'm name dropping. I'm not trying to, but this is a story that I can't tell without name dropping. I was giving a golf lesson to Bruce Nordstrom of the Nordstrom stores. It's been almost 20 years now. He was the chairman at the time. His grandfather started Nordstrom back in the early 1900s. And I was giving him a golf lesson. And before it was at the finish of it, I said, and I don't know if you know about the Nordstrom return policy. It's changed a little bit lately, but it used to be, if you buy something at Nordstrom and you want to return it, you may do so that day, a month later, a year later, 5 years later. Whether you've worn it, whether you've not worn it, whether it's clean, dirty, laundered, doesn't matter. You bring it back and you get a full refund. All they ask is that you treat them fairly, and you get to determine what fairly is. And so as I'm wrapping up this lesson, I said, Mr. Nordstrom, I don't know how to say this, but my girlfriend, she says she thinks you're probably a pretty nice guy because of your return policy. And Mr. Nordstrom gave me a penetrating stare, and he says, Bobby, he had these sort of spoken these, he had a very resonant voice, sort of spoken these pear-shaped tones. And he said, Bobby, what is your girlfriend's name? And I said, Courtney. He said, well, you tell Courtney from me that I hope I'm a nice guy. I certainly strive to be. But me being a nice guy has nothing to do with my return policy. I have that return policy in place because I am a bottom line businessman. And I know if I take care of my customers and always give them what they deserve, then I'll always have legions of loyal customers flocking my 152 stores. Bobby, you can never lose by taking too good a care of your customer. And it was like, whoa, wow. Talk about now I get it. Now I get it. And his rationale was, hey, I might get not beaten on this deal or that deal, or treated unfairly by this person or that person, but that will be more than outweighed by the number of people who will continue to come to my stores because they know they are treated like the equal of kings when they come in here. And so that's a lesson for us all, and something I try to remind my instructors about, and something I try to adhere to myself. If I have to, at the conclusion of a golf lesson, say, because sometimes people are confused, and you go, you know what, I started this wrong. I should have changed direction when I realized that you weren't picking up what I was putting down. You know what? There's no charge for today. Come back and let's do it tomorrow.
Wow.
Let's do it tomorrow. Give me another chance. People see that and they go, oh. Suddenly the frustration that they felt like I am not only not getting, because that happens once in a while. They're just, you're not communicating. It just didn't happen. Not only am I frustrated even more than ever, but I'm going to have to pay for this. No, let's do it again tomorrow. Let me help over. I'm more educated now, because I realized the approach I took was wrong. And boy, now, and it's not just so that they'll recommend you to other people, but so that you can sleep at night, and you can, and because of that, they'll have a better experience, and they will refer to other people to you because they realize you're not trying to cheat them.
Well, and you're doing this for your personal fulfillment too. You wouldn't be doing this if you didn't love what you're doing. And so for you to come out of that lesson and have had a poor outcome, you're right. How do you sleep with that? How do you feel good about what you just did?
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know, this echoes a sentiment in my own company. We sell our software and services to larger enterprises mostly. So business to business sales. And every now and then a customer has a challenge. And we had a customer completely sign our contract, send us their payment, start up, get 3 months into the implementation and realize just wasn't going to work for them.
Mm.
Now, I know competitors or other companies in the industry where they just say, well, you signed an agreement, keep going, keep paying. We tore up the agreement, refunded 100% of their money. We said, look, we have a simple rule, no unhappy customers. If it's not the right fit, it's not the right fit. But I'll tell you, as a business owner, as a business leader, it's hard to get to that mindset when you're thinking, oh, I got to make money. I've got to pay payrolls and things like that.
Right. And put that aside the short term and see the big picture. That's not easy, but boy, it doesn't take long to find out that that's, you know, my thing is, hey, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. I'm not going to live out on the streets because I treated the customer too fair.
Yeah.
That put me out of business. I was too fair. That's just never going to, there's a system in the universe that works that prevents that from ever happening.
Oh, I agree.
Something probably 2 or 3 fold is going to come. In fact, it's going to go the opposite way. You're going to go the other way. But sometimes I think people fail. I'm talking about the uninitiated, those who can't see past this transaction. People fail to see beyond that and go, you know what, I got to get a leg up on every deal, so that I can, at the end of the month, I can count how many leg ups I've had. But what they don't see is that next month you're going to have less opportunities to get a leg up if you stay with that mindset. And so I think that, customer service is where it's at. And you look at USAA. I don't know if you've ever dealt with them, but you get on the phone with them and you see what customer service is. Discount tire. Sometimes I take my car in there to get my tires rotated, to bring my laptop. I think I'm going to do some work. I just kick back and I just watch these guys take care of these customers. I'm like, I would love to have someone work for me who trained a discount tire. Chick-fil-A, same thing.
Yeah. Oh,
How's
man,
that different than McDonald's? Well, it's way different in terms of, and you say, well, they had a better hiring pool. No, they had the same hiring pool. They took the time to train them and say, this is what we do here. And I think now I never worked at Chick-fil-A, but it looks to me like not only have they trained them to do a better job, but it's clear to me that those employees are happy to do so, that they see themselves as a cut above, and so they're glad to do it. It's the greater development of those people as well, and makes them, if you've been trained to say, may I take your order? How many fries you want? And then you're going to be looking at the clock the whole time. You haven't set yourself apart. So I think that those training your employees like that not only is good for the business itself, but it's good for that individual who learns to do it, because they're going to find themselves, as I say, not looking at the clock as much, kind of having a race to see how many people they can serve who leaves happily, and then they become sensitive to it too. I think some people, if they're not lucky enough to train in like that and value customer service, then they don't even tune into it. They couldn't even tell you after the transaction whether or not that person liked the experience or not, because they're just not tuned into it. And so there's a lot to be said for that.
I think a lot of that stems from the company's corporate culture and how they want to treat people internally and externally, and the kind of edicts or principle statements they have adopted for themselves. I know that's what we have done. When we were talking offline, we were talking about how you ensure that the customer matters. Is that the core of your culture?
Well, I would like to think that is number one. Asked that way, I guess I'm not. I've never stated it like that, but yes. What's more important than that? That they walk away going, I was just a star in that show. I think you phrased it like that a moment ago. I was just number one in that little thing for those 3 days, and people know the difference.
Yeah,
there's just no doubt about it. People know whether they're being listened to. I saw a thing on I don't remember where it was, but it talked about people who would bring lawsuits against doctors, physicians for malpractice, and across the board, something like 97% of the cases, in addition to what other troubles that they said the doctors brought about through their malpractice, in 97% of the cases, included in that was He wouldn't listen to me. I wasn't heard. I tried to tell him, and he already had his mind made up, and this is the way we're going to do it. So in other words, I didn't matter. I offered no input. And I think about that sometimes. At the very least, this person's going to walk away feeling like they had my attention. And if I can do that, you can be sure that at least that's a big step in making things go right.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of my listeners to the show are in financial services, serving individuals with their professional needs. So I think that also resonates with them. You want to give your attention and focus to your customer at that moment when you're working with them, and deal with their specific circumstances, and not put them into a bell curve and say, well, here's the average. Here's what you should be doing.
Right. Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
Bobby, I want to ask you another question. I would be remiss if I didn't ask for something related to golf technique, but I'm not going to ask you to stand up and show a swing. So they can go to your channels, your YouTube channels for that. What I want to know is if golf is really a mental game first, how do you get somebody to quiet their mind? Do you have any techniques to help them create a stronger focus and gain clarity for that shot they're doing right then?
So, well, not right then, not from the outset. It's a process. And here's what everybody knows right from the start. And this goes from me and you all the way to the tour players, is everybody recognizes that they can play well on the range. Well, I'm talking about a beginner, when no one's watching. As soon as their buddy walks up, they can't hit good shots anymore. Okay, then they progress to the point where they can hit pretty good shots on the range, and even when their buddy's watching, but they still can't play well on the course. Well, then they get to the point where they can hit balls on the range by themselves, hit balls with their buddy watching, and play well on the course until the heat is on them and they're leading the bet coming to the ninth hole. And so in every one of those cases, it's interference. And here's what I mean: your performance will always be equal this exactly. It is your potential minus interference. You will always live up to your potential if there's no interference. On the range by yourself, there's no interference. Your buddy walks up, that's interference. Now, instead of being single-minded about the task, you're trying to do for him. And so what sports psychologists have found is that the only way you can learn to deal with interference is to introduce it more and more often. So the reason that guy can finally play well on the golf course with his buddy is because he's done it so many times now, and it's not so much heat until he gets in the lead, until he's coming down to the ninth hole. Well, I've only done that 4 times, and I blew it all 4 times. Well, you're going to have to blow it about another 10 times, and then it's just going to be another day at the park, and finally you'll break through. And that happens to tour players all the time. There's so many guys who get paired with Tiger on Sunday, and they shoot 82. And they're among the also-rans at the end of the day. And you go, wow, he shot 67 yesterday. He got paired with Tiger on Sunday, and it's interference. Suddenly he's got a mob of 20,000 people following him around. Yesterday he had 18. I mean, it's just a different thing. And that happens. I've got to tell you, I'll never forget the time that the U.S. and you may already know this, but to get to play in the Masters in Augusta, that brings in more amateurs than any other of the major tournaments. Because Bobby Jones was an amateur, and he's the founder of the tournament back in 1934. And so the U.S. Publics champion gets to play in it. The NCAA champion gets to play in it. The U.S. Amateur champion gets to play in it. Well, this one year, 1987, the U.S. Amateur champion and the U.S. Publics champion got paired with Jack Nicklaus, who'd won it the year before, and Arnold Palmer, respectively, the year before. These guys are just amateurs, and they're paired with Jack, who just won it the year before at the age of 46. He's got the biggest crowd ever, and the poor guy shoots 85. And the other guy playing with Arnold Palmer shoots 84. They then, because they were in last place in the whole tournament, got to go out at 7:30 the next morning. And because they were at 7:30, they don't let the gallery in until 8:30. So they got to play by themselves and just a score. They both shoot 67 and put themselves right in it with no crowd. And so that just goes to show you it exists at every level. It's what it means to the individual and how familiar they are with being in that territory. Tour players are great when they're playing, especially if they just go back and play with their buddies back home. They're going to shoot 63. Put them in a tournament, and that's going to be closer to 70. And put them in the lead. If they've never been in the lead before, they're going to sink. And that's why Tiger. I mean, there was one year Tiger won at 11 years old. He won 37 tournaments in one season, 1 year, 37. Wow. So playing with the lead meant nothing to him when he got to the tour. He's so used to that, it's unbelievable. Didn't matter what the
Yeah.
competition. So so to answer your question, how do you deal with that? It's a process, and there's no way to rush it. And this is where particularly successful athletes have a hard time with it. They say, "Yeah, the thing is, once I get I'm so used to pressure, I'll be able to play. Once I learn this golf game, I'll be able to play great in tournaments." I'm afraid that's not the way it works. You're going to have to fail for a while, and you're going to have to play. There's nothing like shooting a practice round of 72 and then shoot 80 in the opening round. It happens all the time. Rarely goes the other way. Almost never. Might go that way for 9 holes, but not for the 18. In fact, there's an upward limit to how many shots better than one's average one can shoot on the 9 before they make up the entire difference on the back nine. Happens all the time. Shot 35 on the front, 45 on the back. Yeah, you put yourself back where you believe you should be.
You just ended it with the right word, the believe. And there's so much corollary to how people go about their lives and their careers and advancement. I was just having a conversation with a friend who I won't name, who was telling me he's been given the opportunity to advance in his role to another level. And there's a mind block. There is a perception challenge. There was interference, as you're saying, because suddenly now more eyes are on him, more pressure is on him, and in his mind, at least, there was. And he's just got to play it. And my advice to him, just outside advice was like, go for it. Just try it. Go through it, because how else are you going to learn it? But I also really appreciate this, Bobby, in the sense that there is no fast way to get to the finish line. You've got to do the whole race.
You got to tell me what your friend decided to do. Where is he and all that?
This was only 2 days ago.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he's going to move forward, because he thanked me a day later saying, "Man, you helped me really get some clarity here." But I think a lot of the challenge was that he had certain perceptions of what the role meant. And I said to him, "Why do you have that perception? Is that a real perception? Is that your perception or somebody else's? And why don't you stop and redefine it with everybody on the team instead?"
Yeah, that's
because
great
that created a certain pressure for him. Like I can just imagine with golf, I have to play a certain way. Well, why? Maybe you don't. Maybe you could play a different way.
Your way.
Exactly your way. I could never swing the golf club the way that I see people who were 50 pounds heavier than me and super muscular could swing. I can't do it. I don't have the same build. So why should I have the same expectation? But
more shots, more. It's probably everything in life, really. More often than anything, a person ruins themselves by trying to copy the method of the other person instead of trying to learn from that method and turning that method into something of their own, whatever that is. And I see that particularly in putting. When a person drops a few putts, you're playing with them, you start looking at them and going, "Oh, I notice he stands a little taller than me. Maybe I should try that." Well, you happen to make one, because after all, sometimes they do go in. You go, just like that, stand taller. Then someone else says, "Well, you try to keep the putter lower to the ground." You happen to make that one. Now, and pretty soon you get 2 thoughts, now 3, now 4. Now, pretty soon you have a putting stew. And absolute utter rout is coming your way. You're about to destroy yourself, and you're not going to want to know which one of those pieces failed you. And so I think so often a person has to keep their eyes and ears open and never try to blindly adhere to the exact philosophy and fit into the exact mold of somebody else, or particularly like you were describing, the expectations of others. Hey, you define what this role is. Don't let it define you.
Yeah, man. I want to give some bad golf advice. No, I'm just thinking about one of the things that I came through on my swing, because I'm terrible at driving. Like the driver is my weakness. And when I stopped trying to hit the ball is when I could start using the driver again. Because I had this singular focus, like I got to hit the ball just right. And I stopped saying that. And I said, just swing the club better. Just don't worry about where the ball is and just swing the club and get comfortable with that. And my swing improved. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that was for me an improvement.
That is the best advice in the world if a person can take it. And that is, just make a good swing and let the cards fall where they might. Just make a good swing. Just make that your primary, not hit a good shot, not keep it, not do it. Just make a good swing. One where you hold the finish and do it in a relaxed manner, and trust that results will follow that. But most people are doing it the other way. Most people are Most people are trying to hit good shots. And what that makes them do is it makes them micromanage and have all their brain power down at the ball.
Oh yeah. Like, am I doing this right? Did my hips just right? Did I step the right way? And there's too many thoughts.
You can ruin yourself. I've always said that you can play golf with one shot, with one thought, if it's the right one. Sometimes two. But if three or more thoughts are required for you to swing that golf club, then you're just going to have to go on playing poorly until you can reduce the number of thoughts, either one or two, preferably one.
Yeah.
And that's just, and if it's two thoughts, one has to be at address, that is your setup, before your swing, and then one during swing. You can't have two thoughts during the swing. That's just never going to happen. It takes less than a second. On average, it takes just barely less than a second to take the club back and return to impact. That doesn't provide any opportunity for two thoughts. It'll freeze you up, and it's the form of and the problem with that is if you have two thoughts and the shot fails, you're not sure which thought went wrong, and so all it does is bring doubt and uncertainty, and doubt and uncertainty they're a form of mental strain. Well, mental strain wouldn't be bad if it weren't always accompanied by muscular tension. Mental strain is always accompanied by muscular tension. Well, what follows that? An errant shot. What follows that? More doubt, more uncertainty, more muscular tension, and the thing it's a thing that you can't get out of until you go, you know what? I've got to rid myself with thoughts of results. I'm just going to make a good swing. What you just said, perfect. Well, it's a hard sell though. It's a hard sell because people think how could that be good? No, it's the best advice, and it's actually only good players that can see the value in that and go, you know what? That's a good thought. I'm going to control what I control. I'm just going to make a good swing and let what happens happen.
Well, I'm not a good player, but I've enjoyed playing when I have. And the next time I take a lesson, I'm driving up to Horseshoe Bay because you're not too far from where I live.
Yeah, I think this is cool. I feel like there's just a long hallway separating us here.
We are. Yeah.
Dripping Springs, right?
Yeah. We're like an hour and a half away.
At the most an hour, I think.
Yeah. Oh man, Bobby, I'm so loving talking to you. And I have one more question before I get there. What is the best way for people to find and connect with you?
Well, you can go to B Steiner. Now, for those of you who've been around Austin, you're going to pronounce it Steiner, but it's B Steiner, Steiner, at hsbresort.com. That's my email address. Also, you can go to bobbysteiner.com and click on that, or click on the contact tab and read all about what's going on there. I've got a membership site. I've got lots of videos and everything like that. If I can help you with your golf game, I'd love to. Or anything else.
Yeah, no, the golf videos are awesome. You are such a good teacher.
I appreciate that.
Here comes my last question. Who has had the biggest impact on your leadership style and how you approach your role today?
Well, there are a couple who leap to mind, but one I'm going to mention, and this might be a surprise to some people because he's 15 years younger than me. There's a fellow by the name of Anthony Holder, and he is our director of golf. He's in charge of our entire 72-hole operation. And he and I worked out in California together. And when he acquired this position here 7 years ago, he was here about 6 months and gave me a call and says, "You are going to come be my director of golf instruction." And the reason I admire him so much, and he's made such an impact on me, is I remember the day he started in the golf business. He was only 22 years old, and he didn't have any, no experience, no college education, no nothing. And you want to be an assistant pro? Look, we've got guys who played at Duke University on the golf team waiting in line to be an assistant pro. What makes you think we're going to give you the job? And he said, I'll take whatever you can give me. I'll scrub clubs. Good. Scrubs clubs. He started scrubbing clubs outdoors, outside service staff member. And that's the lowest job you can possibly get at the golf course. But there was something different about him. And that was when others were professing this doom and gloom. Look, none of those 12 guys even tipped us. How are we supposed to make a living? Anthony was different. This is at 22 years old. I'll never forget it. He's out there and he says, "Guys, keep your head up. We still got 30 carts coming in and we got a chance to make some money." Well, it didn't take long for the head pro to see that he was different than everybody else. 6 months later, they invited him in to be an assistant pro. 6 months after that, he was first assistant. 3 years later, he was head pro. And 3 years after that, he was director of golf in charge of a $12 million operation. No college. It was his attitude and his work ethic. And he's got a sign you've probably seen that says, work hard, be nice to people. And that's his philosophy. And now he's in charge of a $54 million operation. He's just turned 40. Wow. And so when I see the way he keeps his head down and works with people and sees people, and his philosophy is this: If people walk up on a group that has among the people in the group the leader, no one should be able to tell who the leader is. We should all work together. And so for a 40-year-old guy who's much younger than I am, it may sound interesting to some people to say that he's been someone after whom I'd like to model my leadership skills, but that's who it is.
Oh, I love this. Okay, I want to meet him. I'm definitely going to come up. I want to meet him too. Sounds like an amazing guy. I love that attitude. Just do the best. Help people.
Yeah, you should have him on the show. He would be a delight.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Man, all right. I have to give a huge thank you to Bobby Steiner of Bobby Steiner Golf Academy for being on this episode of The Customer Wins. Go check out Bobby's website at bobbysteiner.com. And don't forget to check out Quick at quickforms.com, where we make processing forms easy. I hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as I have, and will click the like button, share this with someone, and subscribe to our channel for future episodes of The Customer Wins. Bobby, thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure is mine, Rich. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Wins podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.